Hello, my name is Mary, and I'm currently involved in a collaborative effort with my husband Samuel at his family owned business, The Enterprise. Run by my father in law, Liam. It's a cozy, welcoming company with a small team of about 6 people. Liam, known for his quiet demeanor, tends to stay away from daily operations, leaving much of the leadership to Samuel, who is poised to be the next president. His commitment shines through as he engages with clients and drives new projects, demonstrating his dedication to the company's growth. During major initiatives, all employees come together, creating a dynamic and passionate work environment. I have been part of this vibrant setting for 8 years since marrying into the family. However, my mother-in-law Amanda seems to have reservations about my involvement. Just recently, when I returned home early to prepare dinner while Samuel stayed late at the office, Amanda confronted me with harsh words. "How long do you plan on clinging to our family business?" she questioned, her tone heavy with reproach. Since her retirement, it seems Amanda has shifted her focus from enjoying her newfound free time to critiquing my choices. In response, I remained composed and asked, "What do you mean by clinging?" Amanda interrupted, implying that my marriage to Samuel was more out of necessity, suggesting I was exploiting the opportunity to work at their company. This wasn't the first time I faced such accusations. It was becoming a frequent occurrence. When I married Samuel, I chose to leave my previous job to join his family business. A personal decision, not a result of unemployment, as Amanda seemed to believe. "Mom, it's not that I couldn't work elsewhere. I chose to be here," I explained, but her dismissive response revealed a clear misunderstanding of my motives. The tensions with my mother-in-law didn't end with words. Despite her promises to manage the household after retiring, she rarely contributed, leaving Liam to seek her help with chores. Amanda stubbornly insisted, "I've worked all my life. Now it's the daughter-in-law's turn to handle the household duties." As a result, the responsibility often fell to me for dinner preparations and cleanup. One afternoon, I gathered my courage to address a lingering issue. "Amanda," I began hesitantly, "I've noticed the dishes often stay unwashed in the sink. It would help if you could tidy up after your meals." Unfortunately, my cautious approach ignited a fiery reaction. She lashed out, accusing me of overstepping my boundaries and questioning my right as a daughter-in-law to impose rules in her home. Caught in this draining exchange, I became acutely aware of the time slipping away. If I didn't start dinner soon, our meal would be significantly delayed. Despite my growing frustration, I managed to remain calm. "Mom, let's continue this conversation later," I suggested, hoping to ease the tension and shift my focus back to dinner preparations. Seemingly cooled by my proposal, Amanda retreated to the living room, leaving me alone with my thoughts amidst the clatter of kitchen utensils. Both Liam and Samuel were no strangers to Amanda's abrasive treatment. They often tried to intervene when they witnessed it. However, their attempts seemed to have little impact. Each time they addressed the issue, their expressions reflected deep concern and frustration, demonstrating their earnest desire to foster harmony within our family dynamic. Ironically, when they admonished Amanda, it only redirected her anger toward me, intensifying her hostility. Though I had never endured physical violence, the emotional weight of Amanda's words was profound. Liam and Samuel's support was my refuge, helping me withstand her biting remarks. That support was tested one particularly challenging morning. After cleaning up from breakfast and preparing to leave for work, Amanda suddenly exclaimed, "Oh my, what a mess! A trash heap here." Without warning, she doused my handbag with a bucket of water. I stood frozen, a mix of shock and anger leaving me speechless. "What are you doing, Amanda?" I finally managed to say, my voice trembling with disbelief. Her response was dismissively flippant, reminiscent of a mischievous child. "Oh, was that your stuff? I thought it was just a big piece of trash." Her casual dismissal only fueled my fury. "Even if you thought it was trash, who pours water on it?" I protested, struggling to understand her callous disregard. In the morning light flooding the living room, I found myself facing Amanda, her expression icy and determined, as if she had resolved to take drastic action. "What kind of reasoning is that? Now the carpet is soaked, and what about the vacuum cleaner?" My words tumbled out, laced with confusion and frustration as I hurriedly removed my waterlogged items from my bag. Important work documents were laid out on the table to dry. Amanda looked back at me with chilling nonchalance, her face revealing neither remorse nor concern for the chaos she had caused. "You don't need to go to work anymore," she stated flatly. I was utterly baffled by her declaration. "Excuse me," My reply was heavy with disbelief. Her next words felt like a sharp stab to my heart. You've been clinging to this house for 8 years, but today I can finally get rid of you. Her voice was filled with a venom and resolve I had never witnessed before. My mind spun as sorrow swelled within me. Getting rid of me? I echoed, disbelief coloring my tone. She made me feel like a complete outsider in this family. My daughter is joining the company, so we need you to leave. Today's your last day. All you have to do is bow your head to your father-in-law and Samuel and apologize for all the trouble you've caused. Her mocking laughter felt like salt in my wounds. She was leveraging my position at work to oust me. I had poured years into that job, building both respect and cherished memories. And now, I stood shocked and heartbroken. I struggled to comprehend the harshness of her decree. I had devoted myself to this family, yet it felt as though my sacrifices were meaningless to her. Are you sure about this? Wasn't Emma working in a clothing store in Philadelphia? I questioned, my voice tinged with confusion and concern. My role was more than just a paycheck. It was my path to personal fulfillment. Emma, my sister-in-law, had grown weary of city life and its impersonal interactions. She told me she was tired of dealing with the coldness of Philadelphia, so I had offered her a job once she returned home. But Amanda's explanation left little room for argument. Amanda, I said, but her words struck like a harsh winter gust. She's agreed to come back immediately, and now that she is, I want you out of this house. Her declaration was staggering, almost impossible to absorb. With a single sweeping decision, she was ready to uproot my life, completely disregarding my place within the family without any opportunity for discussion. She coldly handed me an envelope. I've written your resignation letter, she announced, effectively banishing me from our home. In that moment, my heart shattered. Years of dedication and togetherness felt dismissed as trivial, like discarded pieces of paper. Her actions tore at the fabric of our family bond, leaving it irreparably damaged. With a heavy heart, I made the short 5-minute walk to the company, a path I had trodden countless times before, but never with such a tumult of emotions. Under the cool morning sky, each step felt laden with the gravity of the unfolding situation. Upon entering the office, I braced myself for the inevitable. I shared the news with my father-in-law Liam and my husband Samuel, relaying Amanda's harsh ultimatum. Their expressions reflected a blend of shock and restrained anger, yet they remained composed amidst the turmoil. Tentatively, they suggested that perhaps it was time for me to step away, to show Amanda the real impact of her demands. This idea plunged my heart into further chaos. After years of relentless work at our family business, the thought of taking a break longer than the brief holidays of Thanksgiving or Christmas felt both foreign and overwhelming. However, encouraged by Samuel and Liam's supportive words, "Why don't you spread your wings for a change?" I resolved to take a short trip. As I packed, my mind swirled with reflections on my life, the choices I had made, and what the future might hold. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law Emma, who was supposed to replace me at the company, arrived shockingly late at 2 p.m. Her lackadaisical attitude left Samuel and Liam bewildered and frustrated. Despite their efforts to engage her, Emma showed little interest in grasping the intricacies of the business. Hearing this, a wave of anxiety washed over me regarding the company's future, even as I looked forward to my journey. I was determined to leave without another encounter with Amanda. As the train pulled away, I quickly set off, gazing out at the shifting landscape. It was a moment to reflect on my past and present. This journey offered not just physical distance but a chance to breathe and consider the path ahead. While savoring the local seafood specialties, my thoughts often drifted back to my family and our business. On the 5th day of my retreat, my serenity was abruptly disrupted by a tearful call from Emma. "What's going on?" Mom said it was an easy job, just sitting in a chair, but Samuel and Dad are acting like I can't do anything right, she lamented. Her words, likely echoing my mother-in-law's assurances, caught me off guard. Despite the leisurely pace of my days, I knew it was time to address the reality of the situation. "So, Emma, how proficient are you with computers?" I asked, sensing her hesitation. "Well, I usually watch videos online and play games," she replied, her answer hinting at limited technical expertise. Curious about her capabilities, I probed further. "What about software tools like Word or Excel?" Her puzzled expression surprised me, especially considering her background in the Philadelphia apparel industry, where tracking sales and managing inventory would require basic computer skills. "Can you handle calculations for sales or fill out documents?" I inquired. She confidently assured me she could manage that task. However, when I pressed with a more specific question, can you calculate the right amount of tax? Her confidence faltered. This wasn't just a test of her math skills, it was about her ability to apply them in a practical business setting. While Emma might have other talents, it was clear she lacked the skills needed for the job. Her discomfort grew, especially regarding calculations, likely fueling the criticism from Liam and Samuel. It's crucial to confront the motives of my mother-in-law and her supporters who want to oust me, I thought. Since you're taking over my role, I expect you to manage the accounting tasks proficiently. Also, be mindful of email etiquette. What's casual among friends is inappropriate for business communications. You'll also be responsible for scheduling staff shifts. Our team is small, but we take everyone's requests for time off seriously, so don't prioritize your convenience over theirs. I advised her firmly as I outlined her responsibilities. I could hear Emma sobbing on the other end of the line. It was a tough conversation, but necessary to help her grasp the reality and expectations of the role she was stepping into. I thought it would be straightforward, but Emma abruptly ended the call, clearly overwhelmed by the tasks ahead. Over the next 4 days, I took the opportunity to explore Philadelphia, the very place Emma had escaped from. Surprisingly, I found the locals warmer than I had expected, a stark contrast to the cold-hearted nature of my mother-in-law Amanda and Emma, who seemed intent on pushing me out. A week after leaving my job, I returned to my in-laws' house. As soon as I arrived, Amanda confronted me, her face flushed with fury. "How dare you make my daughter cry? You won't get away with this," she yelled, her eyes blazing with anger and confusion. Before she could reach me, Samuel and Liam intervened, trying to calm her down, although her anger showed no signs of easing. "Emma is upset because she got scolded for trying to boss around her employees without knowing how to do it properly. It's not Mary's fault. Besides, Mary hasn't been here for a week, so she couldn't have upset Emma," Samuel explained, his voice calm yet firm as he sought to dispel the baseless accusations. Amanda shot back, her emotions boiling over. "It's because of her. This woman is the reason for Emma's troubles." She hurled suspicions at me without any real basis. "Where is Emma, by the way?" I asked, scanning the room but finding her nowhere, deepening the mystery. "It's odd. Emma has nowhere else to go since she gave up her apartment in Philadelphia. I assumed she'd be here," I pondered aloud. Samuel then shared, "Emma's locked herself in her room. She's been crying and doesn't want to go to work anymore. She's overwhelmed, likely because she lacks the skills needed for the job." Amanda, still incensed, accused, "You've been turning Samuel and Liam against me. They wouldn't say the company runs better with you than with Emma, unless you poison them against her." Samuel sighed deeply, clearly weary of the ongoing family drama and his futile attempts to clear up misunderstandings. "Mom," he began again, hoping to clarify, "it might sound unusual, but Mary is exceptional at her work. She's certified in bookkeeping, her secretarial skills are top-notch, and she's even studied Spanish abroad. She handles all our multilingual communications at the company." His voice carried a hint of pride. Amanda looked surprised, clearly unaware of my qualifications and contributions. "That sounds like something out of a TV show," she muttered, reflecting on the unexpected information. I had been so focused on earning various certifications and immersing myself in my studies that I hardly had time for social activities or romance. It was during this time that I met Samuel when he visited my company for business. As I recounted the story of how we first met, I tried to bridge the gap between misunderstandings and the reality of our lives. However, I quickly realized that Amanda wasn't interested in hearing about my qualifications or past achievements, so I redirected the conversation to the present situation. In a nutshell, I handle a wide range of tasks at the company, from accounting and scheduling to liaising with other businesses and managing employee shifts, I explained, outlining the broad scope of my responsibilities. Samuel chimed in, "The work environment has been much better since you were more involved." His comment surprised Amanda. Just then, Liam, Samuel's father, interjected with a surprising revelation. "We're considering shutting down the company soon." Emma made a significant mistake. Instead of preparing documents, she chose to handle phone calls because she thought it would be more fun. She ended up being rude to an important contact, which could have serious repercussions. I was stunned, covering my mouth in disbelief. "I can't believe Emma would do something like that," I murmured, filled with dread at the thought of how her actions could potentially lead to the company's downfall. As I wrestled with these anxious thoughts, the story took another unexpected turn. Liam explained that the president of the other company had suggested considering a merger, expressing interest in absorbing our family business. This unforeseen yet hopeful development could stabilize our customer base, something Samuel had been striving for through his diligent sales efforts. Relief washed over Samuel and Liam, but not Amanda. Suddenly, she objected, "That's not acceptable. Samuel must become the president. This company is ours, isn't it? He's not just going to be an employee." Amanda exclaimed passionately, unwilling to accept the possibility of losing the prestige associated with owning a business. Her outburst caught the attention of Emma, who had come downstairs to see what the commotion was about. Amid the chaos, Liam spoke up with a calm but decisive tone. "I am divorcing you. You've not only resisted change and neglected your duties at home and to the family, but have also learned about your escapades with younger men. I can't support that behavior any longer." His announcement shocked everyone, especially Samuel and me. Liam then retrieved divorce papers and a photo of Amanda with a young man from a shelf in the living room, placing them on the table. "You can see these divorce papers now and take your belongings. I won't pursue alimony. Trying to get any money from you would be pointless," he stated firmly. "How can you say that? Haven't I devoted myself to this house all these years?" Amanda protested. "Have you done any real housework in the last 8 years? Spending someone else's money on young men doesn't count as devotion to this house," Liam countered, revealing a rare frustration. It was the first time we'd seen such a stern side of him, usually mild-mannered, as he addressed the deep-seated issues simmering within the family. The sight of Liam, usually so composed, visibly upset, shocked everyone, especially Emma, who had just entered the room. Her body shook slightly, a clear sign of her astonishment and fear. "Emma, this involves you too," Liam declared, his voice firm. "You came back because you couldn't make it on your own in Philadelphia, and now you can't even secure a job here. You act as if you're above everyone else. You've stopped trying altogether. It's time for you to leave this house as well." Emma was stunned, her face a mix of confusion and denial. "Wait a minute, Dad. Maybe Mom has her issues, but I'm still your daughter, right?" she protested desperately, trying to cling to her place in the family hierarchy. Amanda, feeling the sting of her daughter's words, expressed her shock. "Are you betraying me now, Emma?" she accused, her voice tinged with hurt and disbelief. As tensions escalated, Liam quickly intervened to prevent further conflict. "To avoid more trouble, I've arranged for you both to stay with an acquaintance until you find your footing again. They will be here shortly to pick you up. Please get your essential belongings ready," he instructed, his tone leaving no room for argument. With heavy hearts and no other options, Amanda and Emma packed their belongings. Shortly after, an acquaintance of Liam, who managed a factory with living accommodations, arrived to escort them to their new temporary home. Meanwhile, Samuel, Liam, and I took the opportunity to inform our employees about the impending merger with a larger corporation, preparing them for the changes and challenges ahead. Amid these significant life adjustments, I discovered I was pregnant. I shared the joyous news with the president of the acquiring company, who responded enthusiastically and promised to arrange a suitable replacement for my position, ensuring a smooth transition. With the promise of new beginnings and the anticipation of our growing family, Samuel and Liam dedicated themselves even more passionately to their work, inspired by the bright future ahead.
"Hey, when are you leaving?" Mike, my husband, asks me loudly as I pack, trying to rush me. Sure, I'm the only one being kicked out of this house, but it's not like I'm going on a trip. It's not that easy to pack everything. He knows that. Mike is being mean on purpose. He probably hopes I'll break down and beg to stay so he can laugh at me. What a terrible person. He doesn't work, spends all our money, and is lazy at home, but puts on a good face outside. He can't stop paying for his junior colleagues or women he likes. Thanks to my income and savings, he could afford to be generous to others, and now he's trying to kick me out. What a jerk. His mother is just as bad, always asking me for money. Neither of them ever helped with our daughter, yet they suddenly became obsessed with the idea of taking custody. Despite my concerns, I decided to leave temporarily to prepare for the situation. As I opened the door to leave, I couldn't help but think, How dare they, after begging me for money to buy cigarettes? I had already made my plans with my daughter Sarah. I had no intention of handing over custody to Mike. Mike's affair was almost certain by this point. Little did I know that even bigger problems were waiting for me. My name is Mia, and I used to live with my husband Mike and my daughter Sarah. Now, things are different. I want to sort out my thoughts about how a simple argument between us turned into this mess. Why did things go so wrong between me and Mike? And why did his parents get involved and make everything worse? When I was in middle school, my parents divorced. My father was always busy with work. He even worked on Sundays, which was supposed to be his day off, and often came home very late. My mother reached her limit and started working multiple part-time jobs to support us. At first, she said it was for the family, but eventually she couldn't hold back her complaints.
Your father is never home. I wonder if it's really just work. He could be cheating. No one works this late into the night.
I never found out if my father was actually cheating, but I later learned that he was indeed a workaholic. Looking back, I think my parents were just too young and couldn't manage their stress properly. In the end, no one was really at fault, but they grew apart and the divorce was the result. After the divorce, their relationship became much calmer than ever before. I lived with my mother and she remarried a few years later, but she always made sure I could see my father regularly. I've heard of other kids in similar situations being told by their mothers that their fathers didn't want to see them. Some fathers even refused to pay child support and run away. I was lucky, and I'm grateful to both my parents for always being there for me. And of course, I'm grateful to my stepfather who accepted me as his own. When my mom remarried, she explained my real father's job to me in more detail. My father is the CEO of a major corporation with many subsidiaries. The foundation was built by my grandfather, and my father inherited both a vast fortune and great responsibility. Looking back, it's no surprise that he was so busy. My mother eventually realized that she had been wrong to doubt my father's commitment.
I'm sorry I never explained everything properly.
But I had always suspected that my father was someone important. The pocket money, the fancy meals, and the way he spared no expense to entertain me gave it away. When I once told him that he didn't need to go all out, he smiled sadly and said,
You're so kind, Mia, but let me do this. I wasn't able to be much of a father to you when you were little.
Though my father spoiled me, I could never fully explain it to my mother. Every time I mentioned the gifts or money he gave me, she would just nod with a knowing look. My father never remarried and didn't have any other children. I always thought it was because he had no one else to spoil but me. But where there's wealth, there's greed. My father had to fight to protect his fortune from those who wanted a piece of it. I loved my father, but when I got married, my stepfather attended the wedding instead. My father didn't attend, but sent a huge sum of money as a gift.
Your new husband is your family now. I don't want to interfere. I'll support you from the shadows.
He often said that he didn't want to be in the way.
By the way, don't tell anyone about me. I haven't done anything wrong, but people with money attract enemies. It's just part of the job.
My father warned me to keep his identity a secret from Mike and his family. He said that people tend to reveal their true selves when large sums of money are involved.
People lie, deceive, and hurt others to get rich quickly.
Even close relatives can turn against each other when it comes to inheritance.
My brothers fought over our father's estate. That's just human nature, but your mother was different. She always wanted a peaceful family and time together more than anything else. I regret not giving her that.
My mother found the family peace she wanted through remarriage, and my father understood that money couldn't buy everything. Although they had once been in love, things didn't work out between them. My father's stories about money troubles taught me to be cautious, so I followed his advice and kept his identity a secret from Mike and his parents. Mike is kind, and I thought he would be fine even if he knew. I trusted that his parents were good people too. Sadly, I was wrong. I didn't realize that Mike's kindness was just a facade. He was generous to others, but he did it for his own ego. When Mike was hospitalized after a car incident, none of his colleagues came to visit. It was clear then that people only stuck around him for what he could give them. Mike wasn't particularly diligent at work either. He often took time off after drinking and showed up late. Despite his flaws, he still wanted to look good to others, especially to younger colleagues. He started asking me for money. I began to realize that I was trapped in a cycle and I couldn't get out. If it weren't for Sarah, I might have filed for divorce already. Seeing Sarah's innocent sleeping face made it hard to make any decisions. And then there was Mike's mother. She seemed kind at first, but I soon realized she was just like her son. She spent beyond her means to show off to others, then asked me for money when she ran out. It didn't take long for her to start coming to me for cash when Mike couldn't help her. I was just a regular employee earning about $3,000 a month. My financial plans were based on both of us working, so I never imagined I'd have to support 2 adults. I had been saving the money my father gave me for Sarah's education and future, so I wasn't about to touch that. There was no way I'd give that money to lazy people like Mike and his mother. Mike was frustrated, though.
You work at a good company, but your salary isn't much, huh? You should try harder and make more money. If I made enough, you wouldn't have to worry about it, but I have expenses that women don't have to deal with.
What do you mean women don't have to deal with?
Women always get treated by men, don't they? They just have to smile and act cute.
And who's treating these women? Mike was complaining about women getting treated by older men, but he was no different. I hated how Mike looked down on women. My only solace was Sarah. She was a gentle and kind daughter, just as her name suggested. She was also stubborn in a good way. Once she made a decision, she stuck to it. In middle school, she was in the home economics club and brought home cute sweets she made. But in high school, she joined the badminton team and became more athletic. Thanks to my father's support, I didn't have to worry about Sarah's future. All I had to do was focus on my job and avoid Mike and his mother as much as possible. Sarah's badminton team was going to the state tournament, and I was excited to cheer her on. Mike tried to get out of it, saying he wanted to sleep in on his day off, but I wasn't having it. You're always sleeping, even when it's not your day off. You've never gone to one of Sarah's games. She's about to retire, you know. Mike reluctantly came along after hearing that Sarah was upset he hadn't watched her play. Even though he wasn't very involved in parenting, I thought he cared about Sarah at least a little, or at least I hoped he did. As we watched Sarah play, Mike nudged me and whispered,
"Who's that old guy? He's cheering like crazy."
I looked over and saw an older gentleman in a sharp suit, shouting encouragement. He seemed vaguely familiar.
"Looks like a rich old guy."
Why did everything sound so crass when Mike talked about money? I ignored him and went back to cheering for Sarah. Sarah's team lost in the second round, but I was proud of her for playing so hard. I cheered so loudly that Sarah might complain later. Mike seemed unimpressed, and I wondered why he didn't share my enthusiasm.
"That old guy's crying, just like you."
I turned and saw the old man wiping his eyes with a handkerchief. Suddenly I realized who he was.
"Mia, is that you?"
It was my real father. Of all places, I never expected him to come to a state badminton tournament.
"I've been here the whole time, cheering her on. It was such a great game, I cried."
Some parents nearby smiled warmly at him, clearly moved by his enthusiasm.
"Mia, who's that?"
Mike finally noticed something was off, and I realized I had a problem. I had never told Mike about my real father. Seeing Mike there made me regret bringing him along that day. My father quickly understood the situation and introduced himself to Mike.
"Oh, you must be Mia's husband. I'm her biological father. I've been divorced from her mother for over 20 years, so I don't have much involvement in their lives."
Mike didn't seem to fully grasp what was going on, but I was fine with that. The less he understood, the better. After my father left, I tried to distract Mike by talking about Sarah's gain. I didn't want him to dwell on the fact that my father was rich.
"That guy had a nice suit. He looked like he might be loaded."
I felt a wave of irritation rising from deep inside. You should be more careful with your assumptions as you get older. I tried to deflect his comment, but I couldn't help worrying about one thing: my surname. After the divorce, my mother kept my father's surname, so mine wouldn't change when I was in middle school. When she remarried, my stepfather graciously agreed to use her maiden name. So the surname Mike knew me by was the same as my father's. I hoped he wouldn't get curious and start digging into it, but of course that hope didn't last long.
"Hey Mia, I looked into your father. He's a famous CEO, huh? Why didn't you tell me?"
The fact that Mike did research on my father, which was so out of character for him, confirmed my worst fears.
"I can't believe you kept that a secret. I heard he inherited a huge fortune from his father."
It's not like he just inherited the money. He worked hard to grow the company even more. I hated how Mike talked about my father's success as if it was undeserved. Yes, my father inherited a fortune from my grandfather, but he didn't slack off. He worked hard to maintain the legacy and grow the business. He didn't neglect his family because he wanted to, but because of the responsibility he had to his employees and their families. I respected both my parents and didn't hold a grudge against either of them. They both tried their best in their own ways. My father was even featured in business magazines for his achievements, but he was also honest about his struggles. He once told me that dealing with real estate gave him the most headaches.
You never know how much you'll get for property until you actually sell it. It's unpredictable.
He said real estate was one of the most sought-after assets, but the value could fluctuate depending on the market and timing. That unpredictability is why he had to set up a separate company to manage the properties he inherited. He hired family members as executives, allowing them to receive salaries and benefits. Despite all his efforts, some relatives were still dissatisfied. I could already tell Mike was the type to cause trouble if he got wind of my inheritance.
So you're going to inherit a share of your dad's fortune, right?
He's still alive. Why are you even thinking about that?
You never know what could happen. He doesn't have any other kids, right?
Mike's greedy expression made me sick. You're being really disrespectful. You should focus on managing your own finances better.
Oh, come on, it's not like he'll run out of money. How much of his estate do you think you'll get?
Oh, stop it. Even if I do inherit something, it's mine, not yours. When I shut him down, Mike's face twisted in frustration.
You don't even have a lot going for you, yet you're so greedy.
The irony of that statement was almost laughable. I didn't say anything, but I was already certain of one thing. If something happened to my father, Mike would try to get his hands on the money any way he could. I had been saving money for Sarah, but I also wanted to think about my own retirement. Mike wasn't interested in planning for our future together. He just wanted money to spend now. Lately, I had noticed frequent messages from different women on Mike's phone. He was treating these women to dinners and taxis, all on his meager salary. No wonder he was always running out of money. It was clear that Mike had become involved with at least one of these women. He kept asking me about my father, hoping to meet him and probably ask for money.
When's the next time you'll see your dad? Can I come with you?
The fact that he was so shameless about it made it unbearable. My father had money, sure, but that didn't mean Mike deserved any of it. Mike didn't want help because he was in need. He just wanted more money to waste. To make things worse, Mike's mother, Terry, started calling me clearly after the same thing. I heard from Mike that you have a biological father. Is it true that he's a big company CEO? Her interest in my father was obvious. I felt sick, realizing that this must be what my father had dealt with for years. So you'll inherit everything, right? Your mom doesn't get anything because of the divorce, does she? I closed my eyes tightly, trying to block out her greedy words. My mom is happy now. You don't need to feel sorry for her. Even though I knew she wouldn't understand, I couldn't help but defend my mother. She then bombarded me with questions about my father's estate, her greed growing more apparent with each word. Your father's name is Mr. James, right? Is he still running the company? Every hair on my body stood on end at her invasive questions. I'm not sure. I've been busy with work. I bet he has at least one mistress. CEOs always do, don't they? What a disgusting thing to say. Even if he did, it was none of her business. Does he have any secret children? Enough! My father isn't the person you're imagining. My anger was met with her mocking laughter. Oh, come on, I was just asking. Why are you so defensive? She laughed again and brushed off my anger, but I knew her game. So, no secret kids? That means you're the sole heir, right? My heart sank. I realized at that moment that both Terry and Mike saw me as nothing more than a ticket to wealth. I was being hunted for my inheritance. They had probably figured out that as my father's only child, I would inherit everything. Their plan was to manipulate me into giving them access to the money. There was no way I'd let that happen, but I wasn't sure how to protect myself from their greed. What if Mike quits his job and forced his mother to move in with us? I couldn't support them all on my salary and savings. Mike had told me that his father was already on the verge of divorcing his mother. What if he decided to go after my father's money too? Just as I thought things couldn't get worse, my mother-in-law said something that shook me to my core. If anything happens to you, Mia, like an accident or illness, Sarah will be the sole heir, right? I gasped audibly, shocked by her words. I'm not going anywhere, so you can stop worrying about that. My voice trembled as I forced myself to stay calm. Terry just laughed. Oh, no, that's not what I meant. But if something were to happen, Sarah would inherit everything. The thought of them using Sarah to get the money made my stomach turn. After that phone call, the comments from Mike and his mother became more direct.
Your cooking isn't very exciting. Can't you make something more interesting? The women at work are much better cooks. They even offer to make me lunch.
I tried to ignore the constant criticism, but it became harder to stay calm.
I've been thinking about taking a leave of absence. If you made more money, I wouldn't have to worry.
He was always taking days off regularly, so what was the difference? His mother even started coming over unannounced, adding to my stress. Mia, I hate to say this, but you're really not cut out to be a wife. I could feel Sarah watching everything unfold. Mom, are you okay? Dad and Grandma are acting really weird. I'm sorry you had to see that. I think they're after the inheritance from my real father. I finally told Sarah everything about my real father, his wealth, and why Mike and his mother were acting the way they were. I knew something was off. You've always had enough money to let me take lessons and buy nice things. That's because your other grandfather has been giving me money for you. I get it now. My other grandpa is nice, but he never seemed rich. I realized that Sarah had noticed the strange situation long before I told her. But why would Dad and Grandma try to push you out? If you're the one inheriting the money, they should want you to stay, right? I knew the answer to that question, but I was afraid to say it out loud. They were hoping to break me down so I'd give up my rights and leave, handing everything over to Sarah. It was heartbreaking to realize that the man I married wanted me gone. As long as I'm alive, I'll inherit the estate, but they're counting on me leaving so the inheritance passes to you. I don't want that. I can't manage all that money on my own. Exactly. They want you to be overwhelmed so they can take it all for themselves. After that conversation, Sarah understood the situation. I decided that if Mike's abuse continued, I'd leave. I didn't want to put Sarah in the middle of it all, but I needed her to stay behind and watch how things played out. Where will you go? I'll rent a short-term apartment nearby and look for a new place. Don't worry, I'll be close and I'll come back for you. I reassured Sarah, though I suspected Mike and his mother would quickly show their true colors. Soon after, Mike's verbal abuse escalated.
You just want all the money for yourself, don't you, you selfish woman?
The insults flew at me like boomerangs, but I didn't respond. I let him dig his own hole.
How can you be so selfish when Sarah needs money for school and her future?
Sarah's education and future were already secure, thanks to my father.
You should give your inheritance to Sarah and get out.
Finally, Mike revealed his true intentions. I had been waiting for this moment. It was time to make my move. I winked at Sarah, who was secretly watching from the hallway, and quietly started packing. A few days later, Mike shouted at me again.
When are you leaving? Just make sure to sign over your rights to Sarah's inheritance before you go. Then we can get divorced.
I grabbed my suitcase and left, leaving behind the life I had once tried to build. I moved into a nearby short-term apartment, close enough for Sarah to visit on foot. The first person I called was my father. I needed to tell him everything. A month later, Mike called me in a panic. By then, I had already saved his contact as Happy Idiot, and seeing his name pop up on my screen made me smile. I ignored his call at first, but he kept calling late into the night. I finally picked up to avoid losing sleep.
You tricked me.
It's the middle of the night, Mike. Couldn't you be a bit more polite?
You didn't answer because you were avoiding me.
You kicked me out. We're not together anymore. I don't have to take your calls. Mike seemed genuinely shocked by my calm response.
Never mind that. A lawyer hired by your dad came to the house.
Oh, my dad's lawyer?
Don't owe me. He said I forced you out and tried to take Sarah away from you.
That's exactly what happened, but Mike was clearly panicking. Well, it's all true. Mike's frustration was obvious, and his voice grew louder.
You set this up, didn't you?
It's not my fault you got caught. I calmly reminded him that I had evidence of everything. I recorded your conversations with your mom.
You what?
Who's the sneaky one here trying to steal someone's inheritance? I didn't hold back anymore. My voice was cold and harsh as I confronted him.
Forget that. Your dad's lawyer said you're getting an advance on your inheritance.
That's right.
How can you be okay with that?
Mike couldn't comprehend why I would donate most of my inheritance to charity. It's better than letting money ruin my life. Years ago, I had decided with my father that we would use part of the inheritance to support underprivileged children around the world. Sarah and I had more than enough to live comfortably, and I wanted to avoid attracting people who were only interested in money. I'm not interested in being surrounded by people who only care about money. I had already come to terms with my decision, and I didn't care what Mike thought. Mike, on the other hand, was furious. You're just upset because you can't wait. You even reached out to my dad, didn't you? You tried to act concerned and offered to help manage the estate, but it was all about the money. My father had already seen through Mike's charade. He had hired a lawyer and even a private investigator to help me gather evidence of Mike's affair. I have plenty of evidence of your cheating, by the way.
What? How did you find out?
Let's just say I had help. The private investigator had provided plenty of photos, making Mike's affair painfully clear. It was obvious that Mike didn't have any real relationships, just shallow connections based on money. Now that I was out of the picture, Mike would likely try to use Sarah to get what he wanted. But Sarah was no fool, and neither was I. You were planning to use Sarah as leverage, weren't you?
That's not true.
Really? Then I guess you'll have no problem in the divorce court. Mike went silent. If he cared about Sarah at all, he wouldn't have been so quiet. He wasn't thinking about her future. He just wanted the money. You're going to have to raise Sarah on your own now. Think you can handle that?
I can't. I don't know what to say to her.
So you don't really care about her?
If she doesn't come with the inheritance, I don't need her.
Just as I expected, Mike didn't care about Sarah at all. At that moment, Sarah grabbed the phone from me. We don't need you either. You're not my dad. Sarah had been listening to the entire conversation. I felt guilty for getting her involved, but she was strong. You don't need to apologize, Mom. I felt bad for dragging her into this, but she smiled and reassured me. You might not be great at picking men, but if you hadn't married Dad, I wouldn't be here. She hugged me, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. We were about to start a new chapter together. After that, Sarah and I moved into our new place. We began our life together, just the two of us. A few weeks later, I got a call from my father.
Mike came to me begging for mercy. He said to tell you to stop with the divorce settlement and not ask for alimony.
My father had given Mike a harsh lecture.
He can't just erase his affair and how he threw you out. And the fact that he treated Sarah like a bargaining chip is something I'll never forgive.
If it hadn't been for my father's help, I might have crumbled under the pressure. Hiring a private investigator, paying for lawyers, it all would have been too much for me to handle alone. But in the end, everything worked out the way it should. Mike was already under scrutiny at work for his poor performance. When the company found out about his affair and misuse of company funds, he was fired before my father could take any action. After his termination, Mike tried to call me countless times, but I had blocked his number. I had no interest in what he had to say anymore. His father, on the other hand, had always been disgusted by Mike and his mother's greed. After learning about her affair, he finally decided to divorce her. Just like Mike, she had been unfaithful for years. Not long after the divorce, Mike's father remarried someone new. In the end, they were all just selfish people who couldn't control their greed. It's true. Money changes people. The allure of wealth is undeniable, and I understand why people get drawn in. But I firmly believe that nothing good comes from taking what you didn't earn. People work hard for their money, and it's through that effort that they can enjoy the rewards. It's the cycle of hard work and giving back that makes life meaningful. That's the lesson I want Sarah to carry with her through life. I want her to understand that as long as she doesn't let money control her, she'll be able to live a good, honest life. And I know she will.